Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for electing to come here today. I know that we have all been inundated with different topics and Zooms. And during this Trifecta, which is our third one of the series, and we will continue on every Monday at 3 o'clock, so hopefully you'll join us again. We are going to remain very fluid along with what is happening in our state, particularly in New Jersey. We heard today that Governor Murphy has decided pretty much, there may be a change again, change. We're transforming here, that he may in fact keep us locked down until the end of the month. So what we decided today is we are certainly going to touch on the social capital discussion that we originally planned, but we read a great article in the Harvard Business Review which basically talks about how we can position ourselves during and after the pandemic. Now, before I get started, I want to say that our friend Caroline, our colleague, is not going to be here today. Carolina Denhart, unfortunately, she's stuck in a virtual mediation on Zoom somewhere in her office, and so she's not able to make it. We'll continue on. So grateful that you're here today. I do want to take a moment to, so we'll have a Trifecta today. And I do want to take a moment to introduce my wonderful friend and colleague, Marcella Ceccarelli, who does all that social capital, who does all that relationship building. And she is the Vice President of Client Engagement at Lakeland Bank. And I want to welcome you for coming and sharing what will be hopefully a wonderful discussion today. So thank you, tell us a little bit about what you do and how we got here today.
Okay, great. The audio is not good. For some reason, I did not hear you.
You didn't?
Now I heard you say you didn't. So I apologize.
I hope everybody else can hear. Is this better? I wonder if I have to sit a little
Susan,
closer.
we lost your audio there for a little bit. You were very garbled. I'm sorry. During that whole introduction, we lost you, but now we hear you fine.
Okay, so I'll just say briefly, Carolina Denhart, unfortunately, is in a virtual mediation, so she will not be able to join us. So we will be having a bifecta today. Myself and my colleague, Marcella Ceccarelli, the Vice President of Client Engagement for Lakeland Bank. We're going to weave social capital into the 5 Ps. And Marcella, before we go any further, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do and so forth, and then we'll start our discussion.
Okay, great, wonderful. Thank you, Susan, and welcome everyone. My name is Marcella, for those of you who may not know, and I'm Vice President and Manager of Client Engagement for Lakeland Bank. And client engagement and social capital and being involved socially has been part of my life from the day when I first started my career as an entrepreneur. And I won't say how many years ago that was before I went into corporate. So it's become more of a mainstay now that we're in this virtual world. It's kind of like one of those things that I used to tell my kids when they were growing up. I always said, pay it forward first. Create all the relationships and give as much as you can. So the day may come in your life, and the day will, when you're going to need to reach out and you could hopefully either make a difference for someone else, or maybe someone else could help make a difference for you. And we're seeing now that social capital brings up many, and the 5 Ps, to your point, many points of conversation. I'm using another P word, many points of conversation for our discussion today. And I look forward to it. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. And I think many of you know Susan Asher, myself. I am an executive and a career coach. I help people raise the bar in their communication, in their collaboration, and in their careers, the 3 Cs. Today, we'll get started with how did we get to this topic? Well, read to lead is our mantra over here at the Asher Group. So I read a very interesting article in the Harvard Business Review, and it's based upon the management theorist Henry Mintzberg, who defined strategy in terms of change and transformation as planning, ploy, patterning, positioning, and perspective. We've adapted this framework today to propose our own 5 Ps as we navigate through this pandemic. We talk about the new normal, I talk about the next normal, and now I'm starting to think it's the next abnormal. So we have to be prepared, and we have to take this time to pause and reflect so that we can be prepared when things do start to change. We adapted the framework to propose these 5 Ps, and I want to ask the question, and Marcel and I can start the discussion. What position can you attain during and after the pandemic? So to make smart strategic decisions, you have to understand your organization's position in the environment. Who are your market? What role do you play in that whole ecosystem? Who are your competitors? And you also have to understand where you're headed. And by the way, a lot of us don't know where we're headed right now. And I'm going to say that's okay, as long as we are thinking and continuing to read, continuing to look to the future. You have to understand that, are you going to shut down your operations and reopen unchanged? Marcel and I were on another Zoom the other day, and how many people said they couldn't wait until things went back to normal? I mean, folks, that's not realistic. We have to really know that it's going to look very, very different. Can you regain your lost ground? Are you going to be bankrupt? Or are you going to be emerging as a market leader fueled by developments during the lockdown? So, this is something that we have to consider. So today we really want, if you walk away from here with 1 or 2 tidbits, and the most important one being, dang, I need to start thinking about what my business is going to look like after the pandemic, or maybe some of you are in a career transition. Maybe you've lost your job. Maybe you're going to be downsized. This is the time to start thinking. And again, reverting back to social capital, how do we do that? And I'm going to turn it over to you for a second on that, Marcella, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm not going to be able to do any networking because I'm not going to see anyone. Marcella, I love your story. I love what you did within a nanosecond of finding out that the bank was going to be closed, and that what were you going to do with your events? And you figured out, what did you do?
Oh, I put together a plan in 3 hours about going virtual. And the fact was I wasn't going to lose connectivity with the prospects and clients that I've served through client engagement, networking, as well as educational opportunities with Lakeland Bank. That I was going to continue through there, continue as well as with Chamber, with my Warren Ladies Lunch group, and just continue the same pace with a different methodology, so to speak, just different methods to employ. And I found that through doing this, I've created, and those that have attended a lot of these different, I want to call them events, I'm going to call them more of webinars or seminars, meet and greets. The networking piece and the relationship piece is a lot more intimate. I found that to be, so your point to pause and reflect, I think a lot of folks are starting to get that message, and I think it's a key message to give. So yes, I was very, very fortunate to have had the foresight to say, gee, I need to do this, and what would that look like, and be able to put it in a written plan, quickly. Is that always the case and always going to be, that way for everyone? Of course not. So that's when you reach out and you say, hey, by the way, what are my next steps? And what everybody's doing here today by making this one of their next steps is a great next step through getting to the next point. And one other point I want to make on the pause and reflect piece is that still take the time. A lot of times when you go to a networking event, they'll say, have your coffee. You still have your coffee. Still make those coffee meetings. So now maybe you can make 2 coffee meetings a day as opposed to 1, because you don't have to get in the car and drive somewhere. You can do your face-to-face, one-on-one.
And for those of you who are looking at reimagining your careers, let's say maybe there's one or two or 3 or 10 of you out there who are thinking about that, that is absolutely so important, because we don't know when we're going to get back to being able to see someone face-to-face. So, and that goes back to the social capital, and that's part of what everybody really needs to be thinking about as we move forward in this pandemic. One of the things I want to say, whenever I use that pause and reflect, I really stole that from, Coca-Cola. It's the pause that refreshes was their tagline for many, many years. You know, I don't drink Coke, but any seltzer, anything fizzy, it's that pause when you have that fizziness on your tongue. And that's where we are now. So take that time and start thinking about what is your plan for bouncing back. The other thing I want to say is I love the fact that you're saying have 2 coffees a day. I mean, I always talk about metrics to people, whether it's about business development, whether it's about their career, you know, have a metric, have a purpose-driven day every single day.
Oh, that's so important. So important to have that structure.
Yeah.
Each and every day. So your day, I'll be honest with you. I start the day much in the same way as when I was going into the office. My office is in another section of the house. So I'm dressed, ready to roll, have my appointment scheduled for the day. And I still get up in the morning, as you and I had discussed, check my emails, check my LinkedIn, go and look at the New York Times, take a look through the day, catch up on the news before the day gets started. So I'm prepared much in the same way as I was when I would get out the door and get in my car. So that is very important to keep a routine.
Right. And I think, I know that it's been lost with some people. I know it's hard. And, you know, and we're not going to go into that whole sphere of wellness, but it's very, very important. You've got to, this is the time that you've got to take for yourself and maybe weave in, you know, a walk, whatever it is that keeps you pumped and going. Because we do want to talk about what are our plans going to be for bouncing back. So it's what is a plan? It's a course of action pointing to the way to position what you hope to attain. So what you need to do today so that you get there tomorrow. And in the current context, the question is what you must do to get through a crisis, which, let's face it, that's what we're in, let's face it. And we're going to be there for a while. So it's very important to reach out to friends and family, but reach out to some of those clients that you haven't spoken to, even if things are going to change and they may not be clients anymore. I mean, there's still people and you want to keep interacting. Go to these events, but really the lack of a plan only exacerbates the disorientation that a lot of us feel. It was about, I would say, a week or 2 into this that I was on a podcast with my podcast partner, Gail Miller. A No BS Life is the name of it. And we were talking about how the business is changing and that of executive coaching. And she said, Susan, don't you do anything online? Don't you do any online courses? And I said, oh, my coach told me that like 10 years ago and I never did it. And she said, it's never too late. And so did I ever see this coming? Yes, I'll be in front of people. Yes, I'll be still coaching people when things turn around again. We'll be doing Zoom like we are now for a while and phone calls. But the reality is that between children learning online and all of us Zooming and webinaring and doing everything else, let's face reality, people. This is going to be a sea change and we have to get used to it. We can't say like some of these folks did the other day, Marcella, oh, I'm going to wait till it goes back the way it is. So, but when drawing up these steps, you have to think broadly and deeply and read to lead. And that's really, really important. So any remarks on that, Marcella, before I go to question 3 that I want to pose?
Well, actually, you really said it. You said it wonderfully. The need to read and the read to lead. I mean, that's so important because you want to be on top of the news. You want to know what's going on. You want to look and see what the next trends are, as well as be on the cutting edge of what those are. So when you are in discussions, you have a finger on the pulse and you have something not only to learn from, but also see what other people have to say about that. So I think you just hit the nail on the head and it was perfect.
Well, and while we're talking, and I don't know, maybe some of our listeners read this article or saw it somewhere on Google News or wherever we get our news from. But Bill Gates, and we talked about this in our last meeting, I mean, he is predicting that many of these international and national conferences are going to go virtual. I know it's hard to believe, folks, but they probably, some of them will. First of all, it's going to save a hoard of money for the company. You're still going to have all your speakers. You can have them on Zoom. You can have them virtually. And if you can get a mailing list, or if you can have people that are asking questions and you're, having a group thing or you're in a small like breakout session, you're still going to be able to network. It's just going to look very, very different. So, you know, I think it's going to be both. I don't think face-to-face is ever going to go away, but I think we have to get with the program that a lot of what we're going to be doing is going to be virtual. So how you have to ask yourself, how will your culture and your identity change? So perspective, it's the way an organization sees itself and the world, whether you're small or large. How do you see yourself? In all likelihood, your culture and your identity, your brand, as we like to call it, is probably going to change somewhat. So also understand that a crisis is what brings people together. A crisis is where innovation comes in. You know, 20 years ago, when I started my contract staff, I thought we would never place another person ever, because I just thought after that horrible layoff that we had in the early 90s, I just thought it would never come back. And what did I do? I read, I went to conferences, I spoke to people, and I ended up totally re-engineering, and did it again in 2008 when I said, okay, I'm done. So the reason I speak to this and I'm very passionate about it is because I know it can be done. And I know that a crisis, that a tough situation is where great ideas are born, right? What is that saying? Necessity is the mother of invention. And that's really what we have to look to it, but it can also push people apart, okay? Distrusting and looking after themselves. So it's crucial to consider how your perspective might evolve and how prepared was your organization culturally to deal with this crisis. I mean, there were many people that were working, the whole office was working for weeks afterwards, not really wanting to accept the reality of this sea change. Now we don't have much of a choice. I mean, I know people are, you know, still going, a few people in and out of the office, but you're going to see that change too. You're going to see that companies will probably have certain people coming in on certain days and other people coming in on other days. And you will be, I mean, everything's going to be redirected. I mean, there's going to be plexi. I can't, we talked about this the other day, right? With the real estate folks, Marcella. Mm-hmm. So, but will this situation bring your people together or will it drive them apart? Will they see the organization differently when this is over? So your answers to these questions are going to inform what you can achieve when this pandemic is over. And it's really, really, really important that we consider it. Marcella, what do you see changing at Lakeland, if anything, so far?
Well, in terms of for my role with Lakeland, how I see things changing, I see this, what we're doing, the virtual conversation, the virtual meetings, whether they're networking or educational in value, as still staying, as still being there, even whenever that is down the road, the in-person piece comes back in a different way. Right. Where the social distancing more than likely still being part of our life for a very long time.
I know.
But this will be part of it. I see it as an in addition to, not an instead of, so to speak. So it's not where one would replace the other. This is a new piece that'll be part of the long haul. So I do not see that going away at all. No.
Okay.
I see it as an augment, which primarily in a lot of places in a lot of different businesses, you could look at the opportunities that this also presents to you within your business. It allows you to become maybe more targeted in your approach. It allows you to become possibly more of the go-to person or the COI for a lot of your customers and prospects. Because now during the sea of change, you know, people are seeking, as you and I and as everyone on this call, seeking knowledge and seeking ways of connecting. And this is everyone's opportunity to learn more, explore more, but also put a plan together. And it's so individualized as to what that plan looks like. And then to your point before about taking care of you, making taking care of you part of that as well. So you remain healthy, remain in the game, and remain to be able to keep your plan, stick to your plan each and every day. So
then the next question revolves around the word project, right? So what projects do you need to launch and run and coordinate? And that's a biggie, and that's going to look very different depending upon the kind of an organization that you are. But those questions that we just asked prior to this should point you to a set of projects that are going to help you through these coronavirus related problems. So the challenge is, how do we prioritize? How do we coordinate initiatives that are going to future-proof the organization? I have often, back in the day when I was in the recruiting side of business, I was called a labor market futurist because I kept seeing the future for what it was, from permanent jobs to full-time jobs to contract freelance, consulting. And it's the same thing now. What do we need to see? How do we see the future? And it's hard, folks. I know it's hard, but we want to be future driven. Also, the other thing, while we don't want to look in the rear view mirror, there's one time I want you to look in the rear view mirror, and that is to think of a time or times in your life that you thought, oh my gosh, I'll never find another job. I'll never relaunch my company. I'll never find love again, whatever it might be, okay? Whatever those, I like to always bring it a little bit home to the personal too, because there are a lot of things that we have overcome in life. So whenever you get to that point where you say, oh, I can't, this is never going to change, I'm never going to be able to get there, look back, look at the mountains that you've climbed. And while we're on the topic of mountains, a great book, Peaks and Valleys. Kenneth Spencer, pretty sure that's his name. He wrote Who Moved My Cheese, whoever that guy is, but Peaks and Valleys. And it talks about a young man who finds himself in a valley, and he sees this other guy that's on top of the mountain, and he's like, gee, that's so great. How did you get there? Why can't I be that person? How am I going to ever get there? And the thing is that the other thing we have to remember, we will never know what it means to stand on top of a mountain unless we've been in a valley. And we certainly are in a valley now, worse than what we could have ever imagined, because it's a health scare. But we really want to go back to looking towards the future, reading, seeing what other companies are going to do, maybe even what your competitors, maybe you have a competitor that's doing something that's new and exciting. And yeah, there are copycats out there. There's plenty of them. So, but you'll copy it in your own professional way. So we see a big difference in the preparedness of individuals and teams and organizations nationally. I mean, I'm sure that the folks in Silicon Valley are probably already hard at work on the future. Whereas for some of us who are in more staid or let's say classical types of businesses, it's going to take us maybe a little bit longer. But the resources at hand, along with the speed and quality of decision making that you can do, that will really determine who achieves what. And I am going to focus on that word speed. Now, I'm not saying get an idea and just, run willy-nilly. But what I am saying is, if you get an idea and you think about it long enough and you think it's something you want to try, for goodness sakes, try it. Because failure is what breeds success. If we don't fail at something, or we don't try something, we don't move that one step forward, never going to happen. So your point on that, what you see, and again, even going back to that thing that we were on the other day, the Zoom, with some people really getting it and already have a plan, and others thinking, oh, it'll be good once we go back to the way we were.
Well, I will tell you, it was about maybe 50% of people that were thinking in that way, and that's kind of like what I'm hoping to try through our discussions to get a lot of understanding to those who can have that understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But this is maybe calling it the new normal. There's the next normal, and then there's going to be the soon to be normal. Even
or
after
the abnormal.
Yeah.
The abnormal.
True, it's the abnormal. This is an ever fluid pace that we're at. It's ever changing and it's fluid, and you got to be ready and prepared to change and to mold and to morph as you should be in your career. But remember a couple of things on this though. This is how, even before the pandemic took place, there should be a plan in your life as to what would come next and what would be. The only thing
Always, it should be a revolving calendar of plans.
always. So now it's pushed to the forefront, and now there's perhaps a little bit more speed attached to it to give you the momentum in order to do it. And I love when you say that if something's on your mind to try, go do it. And I would say the same thing. I totally agree with you. Get up, do it. It's been on your mind. You've wanted to try it. Try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Trial and error. If you don't know, you can't try. And if you don't try, you don't know. And that's how you learn. And that's how you build up the momentum to get on to the next thing. So that's, yes, I think you're totally on point with all of that.
So what I'd like to do now, I just want to recap and say, so if you haven't written this down, and again, writing things down, we all know that really works. So 5 Ps that we came up with: position, plan, perspective, projects, and preparedness. So at this time, and I hope we do get some questions, I would like to open the mics, unless you have anything else, Marcel. I'd like to hear some comments. Come on,
No,
folks.
I actually would like the interaction. I'm looking forward to the interaction.
Yeah. So again, you can't say anything stupid. There are no stupid questions. There are no stupid thoughts. Take the risk. We really want to hear what you folks are thinking or what questions you might have for us. So if our producer, Jean Sower, would open the mics, please, Jean.
Hey, Susan. Hi, Marcel. It's Jane.
Jane.
I'll tell you, it's just been real interesting. My official date of retirement was March 15th. Official date.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Susan. The official date that we all sheltered in place was what? Let's say the 16th?
16th, yeah.
And I have to tell you that, I'm listening to you and I'm taking advantage of all of these. As you know, Marcella, I've jumped into a couple you've already offered. What I had thought I would be doing in retirement is taking on a very different picture, including, Susan, you'll appreciate this, not much golf in my future at the moment.
I don't think there's much in mine either, Jane.
It's a sad thing.
I know.
But I even took virtual golf lessons, if you can believe it. But so this time, I actually am looking at now, 7 weeks in, almost like a blessing, because it's made me truly stop and rethink. I had plan A. Oh man, I got this going, this though. I had so much going on. Now I'm looking at plan B. If that doesn't work, I'm going to go to plan C. But how can I help the not-for-profits I love how you both call it. I agree with Marcella. There's no going back. There's no going back to what was. We have to be prepared for what is. And so thank you for all. I don't have any words of wisdom, and I really don't have questions right now. I'm soaking all this in so that my plan B is going to, again, I'll be reaching out to the not-for-profits. There's several on my list, and see how I can help them.
Do we have does it looks like Diane, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Diane Goldman.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You're lovely. Nice to meet you virtually. Marcella invited me, of course, the networking queen, even virtually. I'm sorry I got on a few minutes late. It's been busy. I'm a loan officer and the rates are good. So,
Well, make hay while the sun shines, I say.
Right. So I've been working remotely for quite a long time, but of course I've been out networking to capture business. So I'm just embracing the change, but yet thinking, how are we ever going to network again? One of the groups that Marcel and I are in, with the Water and Wine, the ladies group, how that's ever going to come about again. Such a valuable group. And my only question, I think, for you is, I'm invited to some of these Zoom meetings and I don't know people. I get it if you already know people and you're just reconnecting, but how we're going to go about forming a relationship with somebody just brand new.
Diane, you know what, before I forget, because I thought of this earlier, everyone here, if you're not linked in with Marcella or myself, just remember, I know a number of you are, but if you're not, then please make sure.
Okay.
The other thing is that Marcella, the bank, Lakeland Bank, sponsored an event for the Commerce and Industry Association of New Jersey, for which I was the facilitator. And always ask, can I get a copy of everyone's email and company name, right? They gave that.
That's a good idea.
They gave that out to us, Marcella, which I thought was great.
Yes, it was very much.
Yeah.
Email and company name. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
but you sent, Marcella,
From
what,
participants.
Yeah.
Yes, Diane, you always want to ask for the emails and participant list. This way here, you can follow up and you can take the time and go through your LinkedIn, take the time to see the attendees. And I would say set up times after the event to connect with those that you do not know. Do not make it your mission to connect while everyone is there. Just make a little connections, make it light, keep it light, keep to the subject matter, but follow up after. That would be my advice.
Also, we've made some very good relationships from our Zoom meetings. I was just asking Jean privately, Susan, I'm curious, is it your wish to not have people be able to see each other as a
no, it's my producer's wish. I don't know why. I don't know why, Jean.
Because I
If you want it, it's fine with me.
I like seeing, let me see everybody.
We'll let everybody on.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, what I was trying to point out to Diane, who I think asked this last question.
Ready or not.
We have made a lot of good relationships from the Zoom networking of late and have gotten new clients from it because it's a little more intimate, we have found, than going to a big business type networking where you don't know anybody. You walk in, and I'm sorry, my cell phone is going crazy. You walk into a room where you don't know anyone, and we find that more uncomfortable. But on Zoom, what we've done in a lot of the meetings we've attended and run is put everybody's email in. I think Marcella just said that. And connect afterwards. And we've made some really nice connections and become very friendly in the last 4 or 5 weeks.
That's so great.
I probably would not have.
Nice. I am so excited to hear that.
Yeah.
It's true. And by the way, your meetings are wonderful, and that's part of it.
Well, thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Close my door. There's so much commotion here.
And I'm going to jump in here as well. It's Jane again. Marcella, I jumped on weeks ago, Marcella, there was someone I was curious about, a new foundation had started, a new not-for-profit. And
Yes.
I asked Marcella to connect with me. And I am getting on one of their lessons, their classes next week, so I can learn more about them and see how I can help them. So thank you, Marcella.
So, Jane,
Pleasure.
Can I give a shout out to Lourdes also?
yes, hi, Lourdes.
Hey, Lourdes, how are you?
Always surprise me, Lourdes, that when you surprised me at Course Connections, and now you surprised me today.
I haven't seen Eileen in some time, so it's great to see you.
You too. How are you?
Doing well.
That's
Doing
great.
well.
That's
Yeah.
Well, nice to meet you.
I'm sorry.
I said nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Marcella, I have a question for you and Jane. And the question is, you both come from or work currently at a financial institution. How do you envision your contacts with your customers after the pandemic is over? Like right now we have our lobbies closed, but we're talking, we've put kind of a semi-plan, but I was just curious with Lakeland and Jane, you're still with Provident, right?
Good to see you, Lourdes. Oh my gosh, it's been a long time. I just retired from Provident, but I have to tell you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks. It's crazy. But I'll have to tell you that I'm in touch with the gang, of course. And they're using any means to stay in touch with their customers, because their customers, and I know Marcel is going to agree with this, and so are you. Look, finance is personal.
Right.
Money is personal, and people are worried. And that's what I hear from my my colleagues. I feel like they're still my colleagues. It's not only been weeks, but that's what I hear from them. They're reaching out. They're finding new ways to help their customers. Marcella, I'll let you jump in because you're.
No, that's fine. No, you're right. That's the most that I could say from anyone at Lakeland Bank. They'd be doing the same thing. Any way that they can connect, whether it's by phone, maybe off hours as well. I mean, most business now, times have changed. You know, I've noticed even when planning, you know, times to get together, everybody's calendar is different now.
Right.
So I know that, you know, might be even on a weekend. So whether it's through WebEx or whether it's through FaceTime or whether it's just, you know, picking up the phone, I mean, the contact, if anything, would be more often, you know, at this time, because to your point, money is personal. And those relationships are highly valuable that everyone has, especially when it comes to finance. So the plan would be to continue that. Absolutely.
But
It's Lakeland, I'm sorry, Susan. I
was just going to say, for someone like, for Lourdes, as the CEO of the New Jersey Federal Credit Union, how does she create a touch point? I mean, is it an email for every single, you know, person that they have right now who's an active customer? Do you send out what I'll call a white paper ever to your people? How do you keep in touch with your people, with your constituents normally, Lourdes? What do you normally do?
We do a lot of email blasts, and usually I'll post, like with the COVID-19 on a weekly basis, there's like a letter from the CEO addressing the membership internally. I send a weekly update to the staff and the employees. So I was curious to hear, you know, whether, I'm pretty sure Lakeland at some point will open their lobbies, but what is that going to look like? Because I know we're talking about when we do get to that point, even the layout of our lobby, is it going to be conducive to the way our business is going to change?
Right. I know that we're going through those same conversations, and as to what that would look like. So I would not have like something to share with you, you know, at this point as to what that would be.
I would say, you know, Lourdes, that just as starters, like if you have anybody that you know, I mean, I do, in case you would like to have a connection, either in the real estate business or who's an architect, because they are already planning these things with companies. They're already planning, you know, you see it in a supermarket today, right? You see the arrows going one way and another aisle. Not that everybody's paying attention, but that's going to be the key to their survival and, you know, keeping clean and all that. So it's going to be
plexiglass. I see a lot of plexiglass.
Yeah, a lot of plexiglass.
In terms of open, so you have that open look, but you
I'm sorry, Marcel. I would think that speaking to someone in that, you know, not so much construction, but either an architect or someone in the real estate business, because remember Josh Levering on the other call, he's with NAI Hansen. I mean, they're already looking at that with a lot of the buildings that they're in. They have to start thinking about that. So that might be a start. So again, to get ahead of the curve, so you're not, when the office opens again and you're like, you know, gosh, we can only let one person in at a time. You know, I mean, it's not going to be that bad, but still, you might want to think about that.
No, these are great suggestions.
I just want to comment. First off, Marcel is a wonderful go-getter. Number one, she always makes sure of all the people that she meets to try and connect people with other people.
Yes, she does.
And I appreciate that firsthand. Thank you.
Thank you.
And enjoy your discussions. Number one, because we need that customer service. We need that personal touch. I am an esthetician, obviously presently closed. So if I'm not keeping in touch with my clients, shame on me. So how do I do that? You know, obviously text messages, sometimes phone calls. Facebook, Instagram. And this is the way really of the today's day and age. This is how people want to communicate. Some people actually pick up the phone, and of course any Zoom sessions, but you know, I mean, you girls are spot on today. Thank you, Susan, for
Thank you, Ruth, for coming. And I do want, and thanks for linking in. I think you linked in with me. Or,
I did,
yeah,
yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
So I think what's going to happen is we're going to, is there anybody, I would love to hear from anybody else. I don't want to cut anybody.
Okay, can I talk?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So I think that like with the banking, I think you're gonna have to do an appointment. You know how like you have to do an appointment to go to the Apple Store, to the Genius Bar? I think that they're gonna have appointments ahead of time scheduled to control the people coming in. I think that might be one solution, obviously with plexiglass. I was thinking about that. How I would feel safe to go into a place is, you know, something that there's appointments. So I think the technology is gonna come into play again. You're going to want to go in the bank and discuss your bank accounts. But now you're going to schedule online and you're going to come in and they're going to leave you 45 minutes. Then you're going to walk out and the next person comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's one of the options that we talked about. Currently now, if we have someone that needs access to their safe deposit box, well, they have to set up an appointment. We close loans through DocuSign. We open accounts through DocuSign. So what this has done in our industry, well, specifically in my credit union, is that, not unfortunately, but the pandemic has actually forced some of the baby boomers that were not too keen to do online banking. We've seen a spike go up in our self-services, which is a good thing for us because, you know, it does help with staffing and other issues. So, but thank you for your input, Diane. That's really good suggestions.
So if any, I'm going to let you guys think if anybody else has a question or a comment, but what I want to say is that we are, after every meeting, we have a discussion, we'll involve Carolina, and we're going to come up with our next topic for next week. However, we do want to say that, and I think we're going to put that in there now, Marcella, in the blast, that it's fluid. It's a fluid discussion because anything can happen in the next week again. So we may have a great idea today, but we have to, I'm not going to use that word. Don't use it, okay? Just don't. We're going to have to change our direction. All right.
If I could just interject, I got so much out of this conversation. First of all, the questions that you formed are great questions for any business that you're in. So I love the interaction, and I think
love that you're here, Lourdes, because I know you're such a busy lady, and Lourdes is also
working remotely, so that's why.
Hey, I just want to say this as a sidebar. I had to have an appointment with the bank to deposit your check because you have a very special kind of check. What is that all about? That check that has to be read under a black light?
Yeah, it's for security purposes because we've gotten hit so far so much with counterfeit checks.
Wow.
So that's, yeah.
I had to go to the bank and have an appointment. I couldn't do it. I couldn't click on the phone. But anyway, if anybody has any last minute questions, you know, please raise your hand. Eileen and everybody here, I'm saying people I know and those that I don't know. And Marcella, I'm going to give you the floor to close us out. But thank you so much. And I'm glad, and I've always said that 2 heads are better than 1 and 3 are better than 2. And getting together like this, and what I love about you ladies is that everybody is participating, which is really, really important to making the meeting a better, more, you know, useful meeting. So I love my Marcella, love me my Marcella for, you know, doing this and, you know, keeping me together. And so why don't you close, and same time next Monday, ladies, we're going to come up with another great topic, and it's off to you, Marcella.
Well, thank you. And the feeling's mutual. I adore you as well. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And we are going to, our topic will be announced more than likely over the weekend, before the weekend rather.
And one more person I have to thank Jean, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. We have to thank our producer from Samson Media, Jean Sower, not Jean, Sower,
Thanks.
for putting this all together for us and having the patience to work with us as we continually change what we're doing. But anyway,
Thank you, Susan Asher with a C.
that's right. I think, remember, if you're
I'm
not,
glad you brought that up. I just almost had a problem on LinkedIn, and then I noticed there's a C
Yeah.
there. I
There you
got
go.
you. I'm following you now, Susan.
thank you, Jean. Thank you. And everybody, please link in with each other. Okay, it's really important. And
Yes.
I hope that we see you next Monday, same time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Safe and be
All right,
careful.
be safe.
Monday, 3 o'clock.
Okay.
All right, bye. Bye.
Bye,
Thanks,
Susan.
Marcella.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Marcella.
See you, Eileen.